Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! I, 22 male, went to an international primary school in an Asian country. Kids from all around the world and rich students went there. I was about 8 to 9 years old in this story. This white South African girl, let's call her Jay, who reeked of white privilege, was the most rude and snobby girl I knew, and even as adults now, her social media indicates that she's still quite snobby. In this story, she's roughly 8 or 9 like me. She could be quite rude to anyone, but she was definitely rude to me about loads of things like my height or my clothes and so on. One day at lunchtime, I take my ball out of my locker to play with my friends at the courtyard. I'm holding it whilst walking down the stairs when Jay snatched it out of my hands, and after asking her to give it back, she kicks the ball out of the school landing and into the courtyard. I asked why she did that, and she said something like, "Because I can, loser." I trudged downstairs in defeat to look for my ball and see a very disgruntled teacher at the courtyard entrance. My ball is a few feet away from her and her lunch is spilled all around her. I quickly put two and two together. I realized the ball had hit her and made her drop her lunch. She was pissed. At first, she thinks I did it. I quickly explained that it was my ball, but Jay was bullying me and took my ball and kicked it out onto the courtyard where it must have hit her. She eventually takes my word for it and says, "Tell Jay to come here right now." With great pleasure, I think to myself. I walk to the cafeteria and sure enough see her lining up for lunch. I walk up to her and I say, "Remember when you kicked my ball out the stairway a few minutes ago?" She has a smug look and says, "Nope, that never happened." Not even looking me in the eyes when lying. I say, "Well, it did happen, and guess what? That ball hit the teacher at the bottom and she spilled her lunch." Jay stops smiling and now she's looking right at me. With the biggest crab-eating grin on my face, I take a step closer to her and say, "Well, she wants to see you right now." I believe she got sent to the head teacher or something like that. Either way, she cried. Oh, she cried. We are both in our 20s now, and even though I don't really talk to her, I pretty much don't hold any grudges. That being said, even in our teen years, she was still the same type of person, but she didn't bother me much anyway. We follow each other on Instagram, and wow, I could definitely say some things about her life choices and predicament today. But it's not my style, and I don't want to risk giving too much information about her. Alright, where do I start? My family. The Andersons. We were about that dirt in a nails countryside vibe. Back then life was simple, tending to the land, chilling with the animals, finding joy in low-key stuff. But bam bam, economic chaos hit us like a wrecking ball. So my folks decided to ditch the rural scene for city promises. City lights though, not as glam as they seem. The struggle was real, and then tragedy hit. Car crash and suddenly I'm left with the city's cold vibe as my only company. No immediate fam could take me in, but enter Grandpa Samuel, a straight-up legend. The family homestead where my folks used to do their thing became my escape. Grandpa, with hands rough from life and eyes that had seen it all, became my rock. Moving back to the countryside wasn't just about scenic views for me, it was reconnecting with the OG values and traditions. Grandpa wasn't just a guardian, he was a living storybook spinning tales of my parents and the love they had for this patch of earth. Enough background about myself and my family, let's dig into our story. It all started when Karen moved in next door. Grandpa always said that good fences make good neighbors. But with Karen, it seemed like no fence was high enough to keep her entitlement at bay. Now we live in a quite rural area, where the closest thing to traffic is a herd of cows moseying along the road. But Karen, oh no, she needed to bring the drama to our peaceful little street. The first sign of trouble was when she started parking her shiny sedan right in front of Grandpa's house. Now, we all have driveways here, but Karen insisted on leaving her car on a street. Why? Because according to her, it was perfectly positioned under the watchful eye of some street surveillance camera. One day, Grandpa decided he had enough. He parked his old pickup truck right behind her car, effectively blocking her in. I could almost hear the cogs turning in Karen's entitled brain as she stormed over. "Excuse me, why is your car blocking mine?" Karen screeched, hands on her hips. Grandpa, being the calm soul he is, looked at her and said, "Well, seems like I'm just following your lead, neighbor." Karen huffed and puffed, but eventually she had to shuffle away. Victory for Grandpa, or so he thought. Days passed and Karen's parking antics continued. One fine morning, Grandpa decided to park his car on a street. Oh boy, if looks could kill, Karen's glare would have wiped out half the country. I was sitting on a porch, sipping lemonade, when I overheard her talking on the phone. It seemed like she was calling in reinforcement. Later that night, I was awoken by the distant rumble of an engine. I peeked through the curtains just in time to see a tow truck inching its way toward Grandpa's car. "Hey, you can't tow that. That's my grandpa's car," I shouted, rushing out in the night. Karen, smirking like a cat that caught a canary, stood there with her arms crossed. "Your grandpa shouldn't have parked on the street. This is my spot." I was about to argue when her friend, the tow truck driver, chimed in. "We got the right paperwork, kid. Now step aside." Defeated, I watched helplessly as they hooked up the tow truck to Grandpa's car. But Grandpa wasn't one to be messed with. Suddenly, his bedroom window flew open, and there he was, shotgun in hand. "Get away from my car, you hooligans!" Boom! He took aim at the truck's tires and fired. One tire exploded. "Run, Karen, run!" her friend yelled. They both laid on their stomach behind the tow truck as Grandpa kept firing. I couldn't believe my eyes. Our quiet rural street had turned into a Wild West standoff. Grandpa's shotgun boomed and the tow truck driver crawled back, dragging Karen with him, and they finally managed to retreat, leaving the wounded tow truck behind. The next day, Karen's car was back in her own driveway, but there was a noticeable dent in the front fender. The following days were a whirlwind of legal drama. It turns out firing a shotgun at a tow truck isn't exactly the poster child for conflict resolution. The local sheriff paid us a visit, wearing a stern expression that could rival Grandpa's on a bad day. "Mr. Anderson, here to explain why you decided to turn our quiet street into a scene from a Western movie?" the sheriff asked, eyeing the now limp tow truck. Grandpa, unfazed, leaned on his porch railing. "Sheriff, I was just protecting my property. They were stealing my car right from under my nose." The sheriff sighed. "Protecting your property is one thing, firing a shotgun is another. You could have called us." "Well, by the time you folks arrive, my car will be halfway to the city. I had to take matters into my own hands," Grandpa answered. Legal consequences were inevitable. Grandpa got a stern talking to about the proper use of firearms and the importance of calling law enforcement in such situations. As for Karen and her accomplice, they faced charges of attempted theft and destruction of property. The courtroom became our new stage. Grandpa, still channeling that Wild West vibe, stood tall as a witness. The judge wasn't too impressed with Karen's argument that she had a rightful claim to the parking spot. In the end, Karen had to pay hefty fines for the attempted towing and damages to Grandpa's car. The tow truck driver faced legal consequences as well, not just for his failed attempt, but for participating in a whole misguided escapade. From then on, Karen thought twice before trying to out-entitle my grandpa. Our rural street might be peaceful, but it sure ain't boring, especially with a shotgun-wielding grandpa guarding his precious parking spot. I'll try to make everything as easy to understand as possible, but of course I can answer questions if I have to. So, when I, male 29, was 21, I got a scholarship to study in Japan. I was a college student in the US. I was very excited to go, however, a girl I was seeing ended up pregnant. We were not together, but were exclusive. Of course, I didn't want a baby with my friends with benefits, and also, it would ruin my opportunity to go to Japan. I begged her to have an abortion since why would any of us want that baby? We were definitely not committed to each other. We had discussed abortions before as many other subjects, so I knew that she had a problem with abortions. However, she decided that she was going to keep the baby. I told her that honestly, I didn't want to be a father, but that I'll wait until the baby is birthed because maybe I'll feel different then. I didn't change my mind when the baby was born. So we agreed that I wouldn't be an active father, but I will fulfill all of my responsibilities. I had to cancel my trip to Japan to get a better job so I could pay child support. Thankfully, my parents also helped me, so I moved in with them. I almost had to drop out of college, but thankfully I was able to graduate. I still wanted to go to Japan. So when one of my ex-classmates moved in there to work, I asked him to let me know if there was any vacancy at his company. I got a job there and moved in October 2019. Ever since I couldn't come back to America because of COVID and also because the rhythm of work there is harder. So I was always working and trying to advance in my career. Of course, I continued sending the money to my son. Well, the thing is that I have vacation now and I traveled for Thanksgiving. I got here the week prior to Thanksgiving and my parents prepared a welcome party with our family and friends. They apparently got very close to my son when I was not here and they invited him and his mother. To be honest, I don't have any problems with them. Oh, you don't have a close relationship either. When I went to the backyard where the guests were, I greeted them both. But I was feeling awkward and we didn't talk much. When everyone left, my parents told me off because they expected me to be way happier about seeing my son. We got into a bit of an argument and now my mother and father are upset at me for being so cold. I don't understand why they expected me to be happier. I don't know my son too well. He wasn't very excited to see me either. But it's been far too long and they are still upset, so I need some outsider point of view since my friends are agreeing with me, but they might be doing it just to not argue with me. Edit, I'm sorry, I didn't realize this was not clear in the post. But I didn't kick my son or his mom out of the party. They stayed till the end. I greeted them and I asked him about his school and his martial arts classes, and he told me he's doing fine, so I congratulated him. His mother hasn't texted me at all to tell me that the kid's sad after seeing me. And now with some comments on the post. Someone saying, "You're not the jerk. We can't control how we feel. And parents bonding with kids isn't some magical thing that always happens. And even less so when you've had little to no contact with the boy. Were you as upfront with your parents about not wanting to be involved in a child's life as you were with a mother? If so, they shouldn't be surprised. If not, then I could see them being surprised, yeah. But they seem to be taking it personally despite the fact that you don't seem to have any issue with them having a relationship. If you were trying to prevent them from having that relationship, that would be another story. But that doesn't seem to be the case here. Maybe assure them you are fine with them having that relationship and that you have no intention of standing in the way of that. Might help things simmer down. Another commenter adds, "Not the jerk. I'm of the mind that emotions or lack of cannot make you a jerk. It's your actions and your beliefs that would make you a jerk. You weren't happy, so you didn't act happy. People are allowed to be mad about whatever they want, but this wouldn't be a justified anger. The kid is 8 years old and you barely know him. Why would you be excited to see him?" The third commenter goes with, "I'm a bit confused by the 'you are the jerk' comment, to be honest. It doesn't seem like OP was aware that BX and Son were invited. Did BX and Son know that OP wasn't aware of the invitation? The kid and OP are basically strangers here. OP and the ex had an agreement that although OP wouldn't actively parent, he would fulfill financial responsibilities like child support, and he never desired a child and even tried to convince the ex to consider abortion. Despite that, he respected her choice to keep the child. It is tough for a child to want a relationship with a parent who never wanted them in the first place. How could that possibly be a good idea? OP's parents perhaps expected OP to have changed after being away for so long and are upset that he wasn't. Many commenters are labeling OP as inconsiderate for not being an involved parent, but it seems like being involved might be a disastrous idea. Who thinks a relationship with a parent who never wanted the child is a good idea? He pays child support and his ex has full custody. Now onto my views on adoption. I agree that adoptees should be informed as early as possible, perhaps around age 2. However, I can say I agree that open adoption is the best option for everyone involved. It can get messy, and if the terms for open adoption were limited to pictures, updates, and access to current medical information, that would be fine. But sometimes in open adoptions, boundaries can be blurred and lines crossed. In my opinion, OP isn't being unfair here. Hey there, let me tell you about the craziest thing that happened to me and my buddies a while back. It all went down in our small town where life was simple and our favorite hangout spot was this old bridge over the river. Me and my pals loved walking home together, and sometimes, for some extra fun, they would jump off that bridge into the river. Now here is a twist. I can't swim. So while they were making a splash, I played cheerleader, soaking in a joy from the sidelines. One day as we were heading to our beloved bridge, destiny took a turn. Enter Karen. Yep, that's what we decided to call her for obvious reasons. This lady, let me tell you, was a hurricane of anger. She came charging at us like a bull in a china shop, yelling her head off about how us jumping into the river was disgusting and noisy. You kids shouldn't be doing this disgusting behavior. I can't take it anymore. She screeched, veins popping on her forehead. Now we were a chill bunch. We didn't want any trouble, so that day we skipped the river routine and found other ways to have fun. But that Karen, oh boy, she wasn't done with us. A week later, we decided to give the river another shot. 2 of my buddies tripped down, ready to make a splash, the others getting pumped up when suddenly, like a wrathful ghost from the past, Karen reappeared. This is unacceptable. You're making too much noise. I won't stand for it. She hollered with her face turning tomato. I couldn't take it anymore. Maybe it was a heat or just a frustration building up, but I spoke up. We're just having some fun. It's not like we're here all day. Chill out. Don't be a party pooper. Big mistake. Before I could finish my sentence, Karen turned into a human cannonball and shoved me off that bridge. Now remember, I can't swim. I plunged into the water like a stone, struggling to stay afloat, desperate for air. Panic set in, and I thought, well, that's it. I'm done for. Thankfully, my 2 buddies in the water pulled me to the river bank, saving me from becoming a soggy tragedy. Meanwhile, the other 2 friends who witnessed the whole thing lost their minds on Karen. One of them charged at her, tackling her to the ground, while the others sprinted to find someone to call for help. Cops and an ambulance arrived, turning our little hangout into a full-blown crime scene. Karen started spewing nonsense about how we were the troublemakers, ignoring her saintly warnings, and the EMTs checked us over, making sure we weren't hurt, just shaken up. It was like a circus, with Karen ranting about her divine duty to protect the peace, and us, the innocent victims of a bridge-shoving lunatic. The police gathered our statements, and it was surreal hearing Karen's twisted version of events. She accused us of defying her warnings and driving her to the brink. But you know what? Surprisingly, the authorities didn't buy into Karen's delusional narrative. Maybe it was the bruises on my face or the fact that her story was shaky as hell. She was handcuffed, with all the shock in the world written all over her face. The ambulance crew made sure we were okay, and with a few scraped knees and bruised egos, we were deemed fit to go home. The cops called my parents and they rushed to the scene. Panic itched across their faces. I could see the concern in their eyes as they hugged me tight. Press charges. This woman needs to pay for what she did. My dad insisted. The legal wheel started turning, and Karen found herself facing charges of attempted murder, among other serious offenses. A 10-year sentence awaited her in prison, a consequence of her reckless actions. It turns out that justice system isn't a fan of entitled bridge shovers. I can't say it was a surreal experience watching Karen get escorted into the police car. entitlement now replaced with a dose of reality. The town buzzed with gossip about the crazy lady who thought she could play judge, jury, and executioner on our innocent bridge adventures. The court proceedings were a wild ride. Karen's defense tried to paint her as a misunderstood hero, fighting against the tyranny of children having fun, but it didn't work. The evidence was clear and the witnesses spoke the truth, and the judge saw through the entitled facade. The gavel came down delivering the verdict. Karen, who would spend the next decade reflecting on her bridge, shoving escapade behind bars. Life in our little town returned to normal, the bridge becoming a symbol of triumph over entitlement, and we continued our walks home. The river still flowing peacefully beneath. And our bridge antics resumed without fear of a Karen-induced splash crisis. Looking back, it's a crazy story to tell. A bizarre chapter in the book of my teenage years. Who would have thought a simple walk home with friends would turn into a showdown with a bridge-banning Karen? I work in a few places currently, including a cafe, and I also volunteer in some charity shops. So I deal with a lot of entitled people almost daily due to my workaholic lifestyle, where I constantly want to be doing something. Some small things that are annoying but happen quite often are in charity shops where people try to use blue light cards when we don't accept them. I get it, you do a good job that helps people but often doesn't pay well. However, everything we sell is extremely cheap. We had a lady try to buy Dr. Martens, which we were selling for $6.99, and she tried to use a blue light card. I explained to her that we don't accept blue light cards here. Usually, the woman would lit up that loud sign to make it clear if she's annoyed with you or make a comment about how ridiculous that is. But no, she instead said, along the lines, "You do accept it. Every shop does," which is not true. Not every shop accepts it, which I did calmly explain to her. After around 5 minutes of going back and forth, she finally stopped arguing and paid for the shoes. Another small thing that is annoying, it does not happen that often, but often enough that I can say confidently it happens at least twice a week, is when a person, usually a man, comes into the cafe I work at and orders multiple things from the menu and complains when it takes too long. I'm sorry, but ordering a stack of 5 pancakes, 2 chicken wraps, 2 large cokes, several waffles, hash browns, sausages, baked beans on toast, and black pudding does not take 2 minutes. These are annoying, and I could name even more that annoy me, but I can deal with those easily and they don't bother me too long. Usually, once the person leaves the cafe or shop, I practically calm down instantly. What happened today? That is what made me want to quit working completely. I didn't though. It starts off as a normal day, actually better than a normal day, as we had a calm day with not so many people. Just small families and teenagers, so we don't have to deal with messy tables or little children running around or yelling. But a large family came in, a total of 8 children. I would say the youngest was around 4 and the oldest was around 7. Clearly they weren't all their children. Perhaps a small party, though I doubt it. They asked for a table for 20, there were only 9 of them, so it was a little confusing. I explained that we don't have tables big enough for a table of 20, but we have a table that can fit 15. They want that one instead. That table usually is booked but wasn't today, and I wish it was, as they might have gone to another cafe and bothered someone else. It was lucky for them, but not for me, the other waitress, and our chef. It took around 15 minutes to get all the kids to the table. The parents were not helping. Usually if kids are running around, we do not do anything, but these kids were climbing everywhere. Some of these 6-year-olds almost made it into the kitchen if it wasn't for the entitled mother yelling at them that they can't go in the kitchen as they might end up poking an eye out. Bear in mind, we don't have anything around the 6-year-old eye level that will poke an eye out, but we do have a lot of boiling water, knives, and extremely hot stoves. So the whole kitchen is quite dangerous, in my opinion, for a bunch of 6-year-olds. But that's all the parents did to try and control these kids. When I asked, "Do you mind calling your children to the table as they are causing a disturbance in the cafe?" the response was, "There isn't anyone else here. They are fine.
if you have such an issue with it, you go get them back to the table.
I generally was shocked at this. My coworker, who we can call Jess, was on her break, but she was kind enough to end her break early and to help me get all these kids to the table. I am so thankful for that, as well as I'm not good with kids. I only managed to get 2 of the kids back to the table, and she managed to get the rest back with ease. And once we got the last kid back, who had dirt on their face as he was digging up the plants, these entitled parents had the audacity to say to us, "Took you long enough?" We do have a strict boss who wasn't in yet, so we didn't want to kick them out before our boss could actually see what was happening. He would be on the customer's side before even checking the security footage and checking with us to see what actually happened. So we just tried our best to bottle up how we were feeling and hoping our boss, we can call him Ross, not his real name, same as Jess is not the real name of my coworker, would come back in time to actually deal with them. According to Jess, as she worked here longer than me, she said that we only had 1 person kicked out and banned from the cafe, and they weren't as bad as these people. So that got my hopes up that I will never have to deal with these people again. Now let's skip a few minutes to when the entitled dad whistled me over like a dog. I did make a comment at this saying, "Please don't whistle at me to get my attention. You can call my name, Thea." He scoffed at this and then proceeded to say their order. It was a large order but expected for a large group and wasn't as bad as I expected. I thought it would be more as they were being so rude, but I tried thinking positively that perhaps they had a bad day and they are just overwhelmed with all these kids. Now this order had a lot, so Jess helped out the chef, who we can call Eric. Jess isn't the best cook, but she only did the easy things like boiling the eggs for him or making the toast, while he made the pancakes and waffles. During this time I tried sitting at one of the booths, not close to them but I could see their whole table, and I did keep a close eye on them. I thought this was a smart idea, and it would have been if they didn't eat something every 5 seconds.
How long will it take? Are you willing to be sitting down during your work? We want a new cup. These are too small. There isn't enough ice in my water. We want new cutlery. These are dirty.
I can confirm they were not dirty, and they didn't even notice that I just gave them the same cutlery back to them, as I knew they were clean. And before you can say that they might have dropped it or something, I had my eye on them the whole time to make sure they didn't cause any chaos. And the cutlery they wanted to change, only the entitled parents' cutlery were the only ones left untouched.
Does a pancake have eggs in it?
They asked out of curiosity, not even for allergies or dietary reasons.
Do you have a spare hairband? Mine broke. Oh wait, I got one in the bag. Never mind.
And this was annoying. I felt as if they knew what they were doing. Once I sat down, every time they would call me over,
"Ahem, Thea."
And that annoying teacher's voice made me want to rip my ears off. But I kept calm, answered all their questions with a smile on my face. Now, here in the UK, we don't get tipped as nicely as Americans. Quite often, I don't even get tipped. So I did this expecting perhaps a small tip for dealing with them. It took around half an hour to get all their food. We wanted to make sure it all comes out at the same time, and it was all warm. But the eggs and toast for the parents were finished quicker than expected, so they came out 5 minutes earlier than the rest of the food. This is where the chaos everyone loves happens.
Where is the rest of the food?
The mom asks. Oh, they are about to be right out.
How long? Exact time. We aren't mind readers.
And she gives me that dirty smile that makes you feel so angry, as you can tell that they aren't being nice at all. Haha, it should just be 5 minutes. I try laughing it off, as usually it works with the rude people I serve.
Why is it taking so long?
Her dad asks.
We have been here for hours, and you want us to wait even longer?
The tickets say the time that they were printed. I know you have been waiting for around 30 minutes, but that is expected to make 4 deluxe 5-staked pancakes and 3 deluxe waffles. And you did request for all the food to come up at the same time. We did try to time it, but your 2 meals just finished quicker
than we expected, so we didn't want it to get cold. I didn't expect them to interrupt me, but they actually let me say all of this, so I thought they might have understood that we were doing our job best as possible and didn't want to serve them cold food. You're a chef and you don't know how long it takes to boil an egg? Pathetic. Me, now a little annoyed but still trying to be nice. I'm not the chef and he just made one small mistake. We are so sorry about that. I'm not sorry at all, by the way. You seem very sorry with that attitude. The dad says, I'm sorry if I gave an attitude, I just had a long day. I have not had a long day, but I need to stay calm as I know my boss will be back soon, and if I were to yell at them like I wanted to, I just know he would walk in and fire me on the spot. The mom says, we also had a hard time, but you don't see us being bitchy. Then the dad adds, just get the pancakes out now. Alright, I will go see if they are done now. I leave, I can hear them snickering talking about me being incompetent and unable to do simple tasks. But I started to feel as if luck was on my side. Once I get into the kitchen, I see Ross entering from the back at the same time as me. I explain everything as quickly as possible. Pancakes were almost done. They were just plating it all up. He was very understanding and told me to stay at the counter at the front and serve any new customers, and he will serve the family. So this is everything I heard and saw. He serves a family. I can see them complain and heard them talk even more crap about me, saying how she's so bad they replaced her already. Now I could see Ross getting annoyed, but he was doing his job. He didn't put on his manager badge and instead had another co-worker's badge on. So I realized he was pretending to be a normal employee so they wouldn't start acting differently as he owns the cafe. When the food all gets there, the kids were extremely messy, even wiping their dirty hands from all the ice cream and chocolate sauce on the chairs. Now these chairs had fabric on them and can be easy to stain if left dirty. I saw the parents laughing at this and not telling them off, not even saying anything to the kids. Then I saw the kids starting to get up and run around again. Now Ross already knows how bad they were when they first were running around, and now they are covered in food, so you can assume it's worse. Before I go to stop them, Ross tells me, that's my table now, I'll deal with it. So he goes over to the parents and tell your children to sit down, they are making a mess. And he got the same responses they gave me. But this is when he says, I'll get your bell. I heard some arguing, apparently they didn't want to pay it or leave. So he explains how they are being kicked out as their behavior is making the cafe a mess and making people not wanting to come into the cafe. Now this felt like something out of one of these Reddit stories when they said, you can't kick us out, you're not the manager. And I saw his smirk. I'm the manager and you're being kicked out. And if you don't leave, you will be banned from ever eating here again. Me and Jess loved this. If we had popcorn, it would have been perfect. They refused to leave for a few minutes but did pay. And when they were leaving, he yelled out, you're banned forever. Never come back here, you crappy people. And this father turned around so quickly and yelled, we have children. Don't swear in front of them. And this is where I cut in and say, you were swearing in front of them earlier. Now Ross did tell me off for this comment, but not in front of them, as he didn't want to make them feel as if they were in the right, as they weren't. But they did argue with Ross for a bit, and this I will just summarize it for you. They didn't want to leave, wanted the refund for bad service, Ross saying they paid for the food and did not tip. And since they ate all the food, they won't get a refund. This repeats until he threatens to call the police, so they leave. Now, he didn't check the security footage, but he said judging from their behavior, he knew what we said was the truth, which was nice to hear. This is my first proper Reddit post, so I hope it was good. If you want to hear more of these sorts of stories, I have plenty, some worse, but this happened recently and I only just got Reddit, so it just felt right to vent about it.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.